On this episode, I'm talking about the importance of taking a break at the end of the season, making sure you're totally refreshed and ready to go before you start thinking about next season, and then how I put a training plan in place for this 4-week transition block to help it getting prepared and ready to go into the winter block proper. First and most important point I want to make to you, it's really, really important that you recognize you've had a long season. Regardless of whether it maybe feels long or not, you might be super, super motivated at this point in the year. Maybe your races have gone really well and you're really keen to get back into training and really build upon what you've done this season. It might be that the races didn't go the way you wanted to this season, whether that's racing really recently or having raced over the last few months. And again, you really want to get back into training and kind of make up for the things that didn't go right. But what I always say to our athletes is it's really important that you draw a line under this season and you have a period of time where you recognize, okay, that's gone. And then we're having a break before the next thing comes. It's very much like the mindset of having a summer holiday at the end of a school academic year. It's important for mentally and physically refreshing yourself. But I think one of the most important things is it allows you to draw a line under what's happened in one season before you make a plan to go into the next season. And I think it's really important, I can't stress this enough, to have some kind of physical break. It doesn't have to be that you stop swimming or biking or running entirely, but I would really send that marker to your subconscious mind that the season is over, we're doing something different for a period of time. I'd advise somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks before you get yourself back into the next phase of training that's ultimately going to lead you into the next season. I think it's so, so important. And ultimately, I've often said this to my athletes. My marker of success with an athlete isn't necessarily whether they win races or whether they hit podiums or whether they get those relatively short-term goals. My marker of success is whether people are still involved and enjoying the sport 10 years, 20 years later. Now, it might be that they're not still working with me and they're not coached by me, but that's okay. If they're still out there and they've still built this lifelong habit of enjoying exercise in some form of, whatever it is, swim, bike, run, strength, staying fit for life, that's my marker of success. And I got that from my coach who coached me from the age of 12 to the age of 18. I look back and I realize how wise he was, that I was really desperate to win stuff at the time. And he held me back and said, look, it's not about whether you win the town championships or the county championships or the English schools this year. He said to me, my marker of success is whether you still enjoy running when you're my age. And he was in his 50s back then. And I look back and I'm really grateful to him now. There were definitely times back when I was a kid when I wasn't grateful to him, when I really wanted more. I really wanted to do more training to increase the volume and to get faster so I could win stuff. That's not an uncommon mindset in the type A personality, but I really respect now the fact that he held me back and he helped at least plant that seed of the idea that the success for me was going to be, are you still doing this stuff as you're into your mid-50s? Are you still in good shape? Are you still in good health? That I think is much more important to me than whether I'd made it to the English schools final in the 800 meters as a 14-year-old. And so it proved in real life. I'm really happy with the way my life has planned out. And I wish the same for you, listeners and viewers as well. It's relatively short-term pain if you don't want to do this. If you want to jump back into training, think of it as 2 to 4 weeks. Nothing's going to change in that period of time, especially if you keep yourself moving. And it's a very small price to pay in order that you won't be burned out and you won't just pull the pin and say, do you know what, I'm completely done with this sport, and end up not doing anything, selling all your kit, putting on 2 stone and being miserable in 2 years' time. And if that's resonated with you, then great. And if it hasn't, if you're the person who wants to do things to ultimately win races, then, fine, but perhaps this isn't the message for you. We're not gonna be sacrificing your long-term life for a relatively short-term performance goal. So I think there you go. I've set my marker out in the sand here. So that's the first thing. The theme of this is going to be about the transition period between the race season and when we go into our winter build phase and what we can do in that time. So strong recommendation to take that defined break at the end of October or the end of September, sometime around the October period. I think works really well for athletes. Again, in my coaching gear, I see there's a big crossover. I get a huge influx of new athletes in September every year. I get a smaller number of athletes leaving me who are coming to the end of their journey or going off to do something different. But it's a real changeover season. And I think it's partly to do with our mental setup of summer being race season and then we reevaluate after that. Partly it's down to a lot of us have that natural rhythm in our life of the summer being a summer holiday and September being the start of a new academic year. So that's the lens to look at this through. Most of my athletes do their big winter FTP build block from November through to February. Partly that's down to the weather in the Northern Hemisphere being as it is. Partly that's down to almost all of our athletes are racing long distance. And so it makes sense to do your hard, intense interval work during the period furthest away from race season so that the training closest to race season will be most specific, i.e., we will start increasing the length of our endurance runs, rides, and swims as we get towards your race day. So therefore, we don't want to be doing really high intensity work at the same time. You can't really serve those two masters at the same time. So I found it's a really great way for our athletes to build a ton of fitness on the bike over the winter, do an FTP based training, and then we'll transition that into endurance based training as we go through the spring and into the summer. A really important thing to stress again is don't rush back. Even if you've raced relatively lately in the season, if you've raced Wales or you've raced Nice or you've raced Italy or Portugal, I'd advise you having that break. Make it at least 2 weeks. So you've got a really defined, that period is downtime after my race. And then you can think about getting back into your transitional training block, if you like. Now, during that transitional training block, I'm going to advise that you keep moving and you keep doing something, but you change the flavor of the training. I think that's the way to think of it. So you know that there's a big block of turbo work coming up and interval work coming up indoors over winter. So maybe it's going to make sense to do something different over this transition block. Not to say you can't do some kind of interval work, but what I'd advise is have you do that work, maybe do it outdoors, do it on a mountain bike, do it on a gravel bike, even do it on your road bike outdoors as you're getting yourself back into a bit more structured training. But swap that work that's going to be done over the winter, try and find a way around it and don't get back into it too soon because that 16 to 18 week block of FTP training, albeit broken up over the Christmas period, that's going to be long enough for you. You don't need to extend it by starting even earlier. So find some fun options outdoors. And similarly, I'd advise using the opportunity that the weather provides you during September, October time. Try and get outside in nature as much as you possibly can, knowing that the winter's coming. So cross-training outdoors to me means using a gravel bike or a mountain bike to get yourself out. Even though you're still riding, it's something completely different. Do trail runs or fell runs. Get yourself into a different environment. Make use of the daylight as much as you can. Take some long outdoor hikes for time on your feet if you've had a break from running. That's a great way to get your body conditioned again, to start being time on your feet without necessarily jumping right back into your, if you like, your structured runs. And even, do you know what? I'm a big fan of wild swimming at this time of year. Even in the autumn as the water's getting cold, still get yourself into the open water and treat it like a bit of an escapade. Use the opportunity to get in and do something different, something that's going to make you really feel as though you've got some kind of mental difference going on in your training now, both from how it's been over the summer in the main bulk of your race build-up season, and also how it's going to be over the winter in your really structured winter FTP build. Okay, so next up then, talking about our transition training. I'd really advise you making the most of the daylight you've got available to you. Make use of the variety you've got available to you. Travel to new routes or go to new lakes or get yourself outside for short adventure style sessions. Anything you can do to break up what your usual training would look like, I think is really, really important during this phase because again, it's going to form both a reintroduction to training, so you want it to be fun, but it's also going to be something new and different in your brain, and so it isn't going to feel like routine. It's a great time for you to start a strength and conditioning training block or to reintroduce a strength and conditioning training block. In the plans I'm going to give our athletes, we'll have 2 strength and conditioning sessions in there, and we're also going to have a yoga and Pilates session in there. If you're listening to this on the podcast version, we've also got a YouTube version. I'm going to pull up some screenshots at this point of an actual training plan that I use with my athletes. So firstly, let's start by kicking off talking about strength conditioning. I'm going to have you do this with the mindset of big C, little s. That's a great way to think about this. Think about it more as conditioning than strength. The strength is going to support what you need to do for your running, your biking, and your swimming. So mainly we're going to do activities that are going to involve body weight. So double leg strength, single leg strength, posterior chain exercises like hip bridges, upper body press and core work. All of that stuff can be done without needing any particular gym equipment. Now, if you're over 50 and you want to hold on to or maintain muscle mass, especially if you're a lady and you're going through perimenopause, holding on to that muscle mass and rebuilding that muscle mass can be really important. So I think it might be worth thinking about adding an extra specific strength work as well. It's a great time to add this in. Now, I don't structure that in my training plans because I think people can do themselves a lot of damage in the gym lifting weights if they've not been trained. So I'd advise you to get specialist extra help and advice with weight training if it's new to you. But including those 2 short strength conditioning sessions a week, I think can be really important. And also I think a yoga or a Pilates session, you'll see here what I've got within our plans is a link to a YouTube video, and you can just watch along with, this is Abby Carver's YouTube videos on Yoga 15 that I use as part of our plans, with her blessing, with her understanding. We just copy what Abby does. She's the expert. We copy the routine on the screen. Really helps with the flexibility, and that can be a really big part for athletes who are aging as well. So that's the first thing. Next up, let's look at the way we structure our swim and our run and our bike during the week. So I've got here, nominally, we've got 3 swims, 3 bikes, 3 runs in every week, but we won't expect every athlete to do that every week. You'll see some of these sessions are marked with key and some of them are not. So we've got 2 key bike sessions, we've got 1 key swim session, and we've got 1 key run session. And what we'll typically look to do here is use those 4 as the cornerstone of your week. If you can get those 4 done, and nothing else happens in a week when you're really busy, that's okay. Those 4 sessions probably represent 80% of the training value of the week. So get those 4 done first. So my bike sessions here, we've got a longer outdoor endurance ride, which again, you can go and do on a gravel ride. You can go and do outside on a mountain bike. Get that done outdoors if you can to get some fresh air. Then we've got a shorter interval session here that we're going to do about 80% of FTP. And the aim is introducing some intensity again for athletes so that we start to get used to doing some intervals. Now, you don't have to do this indoors on the trainer. In fact, I'd love it if you went outdoors and did it on the mountain bike or the gravel bike or even on the road bike on the roads. Don't have to be exact number of intervals or even the exact amount of power, but just getting used to a little bit more structure in your workouts is the way to go on the bike there. The key run is relatively short during this block. I've got it nominally for this athlete at 45 minutes, and it's done as a 9-1 run walk. So a minute's walk every 10 minutes. That's really going to help you absorb the long run and avoid soreness. And again, it might not be so important when the long run is relatively short, but it might be that 45 minutes is relatively long run to how it feels for you right now, even if you've done an Ironman this season. So those walk breaks are really, really important. In terms of our key swim, well, I've got a mix here of a technique and the CSS session. So about half of it is going to be focused on technique. And you can see here, I've got a big drill set that's in. We've got all manner of drills that we mix in for athletes, and you can see those on the oxygenaddict.com website. One thing I'd advise you to do here is try all the different drills we've got. And one of them or 2 of them are going to feel really, really difficult and challenging. And it's those drills are going to be the ones that are probably going to help improve your stroke in the way it needs improving. Usually if drills feel really easy, you're either already good at doing the thing the drill's meant to be correcting, or you haven't got the swim skill yet for that drill to change the thing we're looking for it to change. So something that feels really difficult is probably going to be something that needs addressing, and that's the thing to focus on. So about half of our swim session is going to be doing drills, and about half of our swim session is going to be introducing some harder swimming at or about your CSS pace. And then if we look at the other things we've got in the week, well, we've got a couple of shorter, steady runs, 20 or 30 minutes. We've got one other bike session here. It's 45 minutes. And although that's written as an interval training session there in terms of the structure you can see on the screen, really, we're just looking to go out and ride somewhere between 65 and 75% of FTP. And that's going to be enough for that kind of zone 2 ride. And again, great on the mountain bike, great on the gravel bike at this time of year. Then the other 2 swims I've got in the plan here, I've got one endurance-based swim, which is mainly steady swim, so CSS +8 to CSS +12 seconds, 100, with, relatively easy 20-second recoveries there. So it's just about getting relaxed in the water again. And finally, our third swim of the week is a recovery swim. So for a lot of athletes, I'll say, just have a recovery day that day and don't swim. For our athletes who are stronger swimmers or those who swam as kids, I'll be saying to them, well, look, get in and do a really easy recovery swim and you'll feel better at the end of that recovery swim than you did at the start. If you're not at that level of swimming yet, if swimming is a real challenge for you and it feels like a really hard workout and you haven't developed the ability yet to have that easy swim, then don't do the swim at all. Have that as a focused day of recovery. And then as we scroll through the 4-week block, well, the structure of each week is exactly the same. You can see it's the same workouts on the same days. We've gradually extended some of the length of the intervals. The swim workouts will be subtly different. Our long bike session at the weekend is getting gradually longer. Our long run is getting gradually longer, but only by 5 or 10 minutes on the run and by half an hour on the bike ride. So not massive jumps here. Same into week 3. And then week 4 of this is a much more stripped back recovery based version of the week. So not everyone's going to do 4 weeks of a transition block. Some people might only do a couple of weeks depending on when they've raced. But the key is we'll have between 2 and 4 weeks to ease yourself back into the plan. By the end of this 4-week block, we want you mentally ready to go and ready to jump in with both feet into the FTP winter build block. And then we can really hit the ground running. And that's really the aim of those interval sessions at 80-90% of FTP that we've done very briefly once a week in the transition block there. Now, the one last tip I'll give you is to use this lighter month for goal setting. Do some journaling, do it weekly, do it daily, review the last season, come up with your views on how you think the last season went, what you would keep, what you would change. Write down some clear aims, both for the sport, but also personal and professional life. I'm a really big fan of daily journaling. I think sitting down to write for even 5 minutes at the start of every day really helps clear your mind and helps you get focused on what it is you need to do that day, that week. And often you'll be amazed at how you kind of clear the clutter out of your mind before you get started on the day. But again, coming back to the transition block, I think it's really useful to do that and work out then what you think your targets and goals are for this next coming year.